Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here with my Mercedes ML350 chassis vehicle, and today we're going to be replacing the thermostat in this OM642 3-litre turbo diesel engine. Now, the reason that we're replacing the thermostat is because I've noticed that when I'm driving the vehicle around, the engine is simply running too cool. So it's typically running around 70 degrees, sometimes even as low as 60 degrees after I've been driving it for a significant period of time. So I've been driving the ML for about 15 minutes this morning, and check out the temperature. She's still just above 60 degrees, probably less than 70 degrees. So just way too low, folks. It is winter time here right now, but the engine really should be up around the 90 degrees or the 95 degrees Celsius. So it's simply running too cool, which is doing long-term damage to the engine because all of the metals expand, and therefore they should actually be at the correct operating temperature for the optimal performance of the engine. So to do this job, as you can see, I've actually chosen to use a genuine Mercedes thermostat. That's a A642 200 2215 thermostat for this specific vehicle. And if I just take it out of the box, you'll see the LAU is actually the complete housing, thermostat inside the housing, as well as mine's got an electrical connector on top. Now, that's actually a heating circuit, which is one of the reasons I've chosen just to get the complete unit and not just try to go to an aftermarket thermostat on the inside. But you do need to get the assembly that's right for your vehicle. Now, shopping around, a genuine from Mercedes locally here was $619. I've actually purchased this from online, genuine Mercedes, at a third of that price. So I think that's a pretty good deal to get a genuine thermostat with the complete housing with the electrical heating element. There are other alternatives. However, I've chosen to go genuine just because I don't want to risk it actually not opening up and then overheating the engine. But let's look at what other parts we also need to do this job. So let's have a look at the parts, consumables and tools required to do this job. Obviously, we've got the thermostat as the part to fit to the vehicle. I've then gone and got some coolant. I've got the correct blue coolant because I do expect to lose a little bit of coolant when we take that thermostat off before we put the new one on. I've then got my E10 socket to remove the bolts around the place. I've then got a replacement hose clamp. We are going to need to take the fuel line off, and as well as the turbo outlet pipe. And I like to replace the original Mercedes hose clamps with a normal hose clamps because their original OEM ones are just annoying. I'll show you that in the video when I take one of them off. Got a screwdriver to undo and do up those hose clamps. Got a torque wrench to redo those bolts into the heads. You only need 9 Newton meters of torque, and it is alloy head, so you don't want to over tighten that. We've got a Torx bit. It's a T20 Torx bit, part of getting that turbo outlet pipe off. And we've just got some pliers just to remove a couple of clips around the place. So let's get into it. So let's start by opening the bonnet and getting the engine cover off. So with the engine cover off, you can clearly see my thermostat here is at the top of the engine. And we can do a quick comparison to the one which we purchased, and you can see straight away it's identical with that electrical connection at the top of the thermostat. Now, on different OM642 engines, as I said in the beginning, you need to check that you're getting the right part because some of them don't have that heating circuit in them. So let's start by getting the electrical connector off of the thermostat. To do that, you need to pull this grey tab back and then press it down. So just get our screwdriver in just like that, just to help us, and then we'll just give that a bit of a flex just to pop that toggle out. And then let's get the fuel line clamp undone from the inlet side. Just push that back. And then the trick with these OEM Mercedes clamps is just to get your screwdriver in, just like I'm doing there, and just to flex that up. So with that clamp then released, we can then hopefully just pull that fuel line completely off. I might give it some extra persuasion. So to get to the bottom bolt that's on the thermostat, it's right underneath that metal fuel line. It's really bad design by Mercedes. So we're going to have to get the air intake off and the intercooler pipe off, and then undo the bolt that holds that metal bracket just to manipulate it enough to get to the bottom bolt of the thermostat. So let's get that air intake off now, then we'll get that intercooler pipe off as well. So to get this off, we need to undo the sensors that go to the MAF sensors. So those little grey tabs have to be popped out, and then you flex it. This one's underneath, so you just pop that out with your screwdriver, flex it, and then pull that one off as well. Being a little bit painful there. There we go. Get that one off there as well. And then what we want to do is undo these clips to our air boxes. So get that one off. There's one at the back as well. A couple over this side. And one here. And then we need to undo the hose clamp that's in here on the turbo inlet seal. So we just undo that like that. And then we need to come around to each side and just get the inlet tube out of their air boxes. So just flex it up like that. And we'll do the same on this. We don't actually have to take the air boxes out. So got that out. And then with everything disconnected, we should be able to just rotate that off. There's a little PCV inlet underneath, so just pop that out as well. It's not the best design by Mercedes, but we've got that out. So with that air intake out, we can see we've got good access to our turbo intercooler pipe, which we need to get out. But let's first get the radiator hose off the thermostat. So just use some pliers and lift up this clip here. Just like that. And then you can see that comes out. Straight away there's a bit of coolant leaking out of there, as we would expect. Let's undo that clip and just get that off around, out of the way. So to get the turbo outlet pipe off, there's a number of E10 bolts that we need to take out. There's one here at the top, and then there's one on the plastic piece down, which makes up to that piece of aluminium. There's two E10 bolts. I'll do my best to show you on camera, but they're either side, one on the upper side of the big plastic housing, one on the lower side. And then there's also a torque 10, which holds the bracket between the aluminium and that plastic fitting of your turbo outlet pipe. So let's get those out now. And you can see there's quite a longer bolt comes out of the underside of this plastic housing here. So with those E10 bolts removed and that T10 screw taken out, as well as that bracket, we can now remove this turbo intercooler pipe and pop it off from the bottom section, and we can get that all the way out of the way. Now, just because we are going to be removing that thermostat and some more coolant might come out, I've just popped the plastic bag with a rubber band over that pipe, which is the turbo outlet pipe, because I don't actually want any coolant going down into that. That's just precautionary. If you do that like I've done, make sure you take the plastic bag out when the reassembly process. But let's get now an E10 onto this fuel line here, get that off. First of all, actually, I might take that clip out to remove that little piece there, which is then going to give us access to get in to that bolt. So I think we're now going to have just enough flex in this fuel line to get to that bottom bolt on the thermostat. So with all of that undone and out of the way, let's see if we can get to the 3 bolts that get to the thermostat to get it off. All right, so as we can see, it's actually a longer bolt that's come out of that back side of that thermostat. So let's get that thermostat out now. And there we go. Here we are. Something I will show you folks is this little bit of a rattle. I noticed that in the new thermostat that it has a rattle, and I just wanted to double check. It's an air relief valve built into the thermostat housing, so that if there's any air pockets, it allows it to pass through. I suppose when the thermostat's closed, but you can clearly hear the old one's got a rattle. So the rattle in your new one, folks, if you hear that rattle that I heard, is not an issue at all. So folks, before I install any new parts, I do like to have a sanity check that it's actually physically, when I look at it, the same. I've just got these parts side by side, and you can see essentially they are identical in the physical form, the physical dimensions at least. You can see the old one appears to have, it's like a rubber surface on the inside, whereas the new one is a straight metal surface, but I'd say that's just a design revision between the parts. Apart from that, they genuinely are identical, both made in Germany, a Wala part and a A642 200 2215. So let's get the new one installed. So obviously it's going to go straight in like that. What I might do is actually put the long bolt in first and just see if we can get that in before we do anything else. The most difficult bolt, we'll just get that in. Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. And I'll actually get that started as well. Just take the socket off and get onto that, because it's absolutely the dumbest configuration that they've got here with fuel lines over the top. But anyway, let's just get that screwed in so it's at least loose, and then we'll get the other two on top. So now that we've threaded those in firmly by hand, let's grab our torque wrench. I've got it set only to 9 Newton meters. As I said in the beginning, it's an alloy head. You really don't want to over tighten these. So let's torque those down now. You can see straight away that is not much force at all, but there's a nice gasket on there. So you can see that one's fine. And let's get in on that underside and do the same thing. Just double check the top ones. Perfect. So with those thermostat bolts torqued down, let's get the E10 back into place, which holds this fuel line in position. Grab our E10 socket there as well. There we go. And we'll just pop in the line in there on the thermostat, and this in here, just click that into position like that, and grab that clip that holds that in there. Push that little clip in. Now, whilst we're here, let's get the fuel line back on. Now, as I said, I don't like those original Mercedes hose clamps, so I've just swapped over the last one to a normal hose clamp. Just find it easier to work with, to be honest. And let's get in on this one in here. Whilst we're here, let's get that electrical connector plugged in and push that white tab in. Okay, so we're ready to actually now put our intercooler pipework back in and to get the air intake in to the turbo. If you put a plastic bag on, like I did, don't forget to remove that plastic bag. So I've got the bag and the rubber band, because the last thing you want is that going through the turbo intercooler system. And then let's get our aluminium or aluminum for our American viewers. Let's get that intercooler turbo outlet pipe back on. Now what I like to do is, you've got to be really careful not to nick these seals. Ideally, I would have actually had new seals, but I like to pop it on to the turbo outlet up there, And then let's get the bottom one on. The bottom one has the turbo seal on it. So let's get that one on first, and then we'll get it all back together. So let's get this T20 in here. Just get that in loosely. Now we've got that bracket in there. And then let's get this one up on the top. Pop that in just nicely. You can see that's gone in really well. So let's get that E10 in up here. So next, let's reinstall the coolant hose. Let's put the plastic bracket back on that intercooler pipe. Just flex that a little bit and put that in the bracket, and then just push that in. It should just click straight in. That's perfect, as you can see there. Now let's get that inlet air filter system, that Y pipe, into the turbo. So we need to make sure we get this PCV valve into the bottom of that Y pipe. It's a bit of a crappy design, this whole system, to be honest, but it is what it is. So we'll get that in first, and then you just kind of slide the Y pipe on, being very careful not to pinch the seal. So let's get that PCV valve in and just slot that in. I can just feel that that's gone in just right, and I'll just rotate that up out the way. And then let's slide on that turbo seal. You see, it's just all very delicate, and you can just kind of have a look underneath and feel that that PCV is all the way in. And then let's get the end pieces onto those air boxes. Let's get this one in here. Get that clamp out the way there. Okay. Mass airflow sensor in and press that white tab in. Okay. Get this one in here. And then we just got to do this up with the screwdriver here. That clamp on the main turbo inlet. To be honest, it's not that tight. You just do that snug. And then I've got the mass airflow sensor on this side as well to plug in. Press that white tab in. Now with the job essentially done and with everything reconnected, it's really important at this stage just to check that you've got all of your tools removed and you've got everything reconnected and all of the fasteners are back in correctly. So just have a double check of everything that you've disconnected, all of the electrical connectors, the fuel lines, intercooler pipes, all of the bolts are back in. We've got our sensors back into the air intake system. I've got one clamp left over. That's the original Mercedes clamp that I had on this end of that fuel line. So I think we're good to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to top up the coolant. So undo this here, because we did lose a little bit of coolant, not much. So let's put a little bit of coolant in. To be honest, that's probably enough. And then we'll just put this on just loosely, because what we'll do is we'll start the engine and we'll clear any air bubbles that might be in the system. Because I did have the fuel line off to the fuel filter, what I'm going to do is the procedure to prime the fuel filter. And then it is, what you do is you turn the ignition to the second position without starting the engine, and you just let the fuel pump work for 5 seconds until it switches off. You can hear it in the vehicle, and you do that 3 times. So you go to the second position, wait for 5 seconds, you can hear the fuel pump running, it stops, then you turn the key off, then you do the same again, wait for the fuel pump to stop, turn it off, and then you do it a 3rd time. that's going to completely make sure we've got the fuel system primed, and then I'm going to start the engine. So let's do that now. Okay, so let's prime the fuel system. So 1, 2. So you can hear that priming right now. You heard the air bubbles at the back of the tank. Okay, that's stopped now, so let's turn it off. And then we'll do that a second time. And then we'll do that a third time. And I'm just gonna pop around to the engine bay and have a look. So you can see, having primed that 3 times, there's no fuel leaks in here. Everything looks good, so let's start it up. So folks, with that engine running, I'm just having a good look around. It's really important just to see we've had our turbo outlet pipe off. You know, we've taken our thermostat off. We've had the fuel line disconnected. So I'm just having a really good solid look just to see that we don't have any leaks anywhere and that everything's good. You know folks, I've had this very vehicle worked on by both professional, independent European garages with professional mechanics and also at Mercedes-Benz dealerships. And when I've got the vehicle back, in both instances, I've had fuel leaks and oil leaks all over the place. So I really don't understand why they don't give it this proper inspection. Like, I've got absolutely no leaks and I'm really confident in my work. And it's actually why I do the majority of the work that I do on this vehicle myself now, and why I produce these videos for you guys to help you do your own maintenance. Because a little bit of care, you can do as good a job or a better job than the professional garages. So importantly, what we want to do now is we want to make sure we bleed the cooling system. So we can just look in the cooling system. It's been running for a couple of minutes, and what you want to do is just give that top hose just a bit of a squeeze like I'm doing there now, just to get any air. I can feel that it's still cold, so really the coolant hasn't started yet circulating. So I'm just going to let it go. We'll let the engine warm up, come up to temperature, and then we'll come back and we'll check the bleeding of the coolant. So she's fully up to temperature now, and I've given it a couple of squeezes. I've topped up the radiator tank again, so I think we're good to go now. So I'm going to put the cap on all the way firm. I've double checked for leaks. There's absolutely no leaks on anything that we've done here today. So the final thing to do is to put the engine cover back on and close the bonnet, folks. So folks, I've just taken the vehicle for a drive. I've been driving for about 20 minutes or so. You can see it's now up to temperature. It's up around that 90 to 95 degrees Celsius, which is just where I want it to be. Before, it just never got up to this operating temperature. So I'd say that's a job well done. So there you go, folks. That's how to replace your thermostat in your Mercedes OM642 turbo diesel engine. Now in this case, the OM642 is fitted to my 2011 Mercedes ML W164 chassis. However, this same engine is actually fitted to a lot of vehicles. You can find it in C-Class Mercedes, M-Class Mercedes, R-Class Mercedes, GLs, as well as a number of Jeeps, just to name a few. So, it's going to be slightly different turbo piping to get around, but essentially it's the same procedure to follow. So if you have liked the video, give us a like and drop us a comment down below. It's truly appreciated. Tell us what you think about today's video. And in the future, if you're interested in learning about DIY, maintenance and servicing on a range of vehicles, we don't only have the Mercedes here, we've got the Audi A3, the Mazda 3, the early Ford Falcon on the channel. So if you're interested in any of that content, do subscribe to the channel. Until next time, have a good evening.